Once a month, patrons for the Grief Revolution get to hang out with me for an hour and ask me questions. So we're taking some of those questions and editing them for you here. So here's a question from a previous Patreon live Q&A session. What do you do if you don't express your grief through crying and maybe your partner or another family member does? Is it weird? Is it okay if you don't cry? Find out in this episode.
This idea that only tears are real grief. So Michael asks, if I have no tears to express my grief, am I not doing the work of grief? I'm peeking around to make sure that I understand his question and read it and share it back. And, I think this is a question that men ask pretty often in male-identified people, but it's not just for men. Not everybody cries when they're sad. Not everybody yells when they're angry, right? There is no one expression, but just like a lot of the other cliches and stereotypes we have about grief, we have this image, right, of the sobbing, wailing widow or the sobbing, wailing mother. But that's not always true. Just because you aren't crying, just because your grief isn't running down your face, doesn't mean that you aren't in pain, right? Some people sleep when they're sad. Some people write or sing when they're sad. Some people's sadness leaks out on their face. Not everybody's does, right? That can get really tricky in relationships where one person is more expressive through tears and another person isn't, because then it can be like, wait a minute, don't you feel the same way that I do? And I think the conversation there is, you and I have very different expressions of our love. In Michael's case, you and I have very different expressions of our love for our son. It doesn't look the same. It didn't look the same when he was here, right? Your love for your child didn't look the same as your wife's love for your child. Your grief won't look the same either. And so to be able to have those conversations into that gap, into that dissonance that says we do this differently. One, where are the places we agree? Where are the places we meet? Where are the places we're similar? And where are the places we're different? And how can we honor those differences in each other? It's hard work. It's hard work for partners and for families to enter into those conversations about how we do things differently. It's very easy to jump into assumptions and to say, because you're not doing it the way that I do it, you don't feel the same way, and how dare you, right? So what's really, really important is to recognize that every expression of grief is valid, just as every expression of love is valid. And when there is difference, when there is dissonance, to speak to it. Right? To name it, to say it out loud. And even as a question, even as a curiosity, to say, you know what I've noticed, that I am not a crier, and I know that you express your grief in this situation by crying, and I wonder what is that like for you? What's that like for you to have me not cry and for you to cry? That's a wonderful question, right? It doesn't presume there's a problem, but it acknowledges that there's a difference. And how do we speak into that difference? Right? These are really, really cool, grown-up, kick-ass relational communication skills. It's sort of ninja level to speak into that gap and that difference with curiosity and respect for each other. Yeah? All right. Bye.